Hi, my name is Jenna Johnson and I'll be presenting on young people's sex education and STIs. Young people are defined by Bywater and Jones as actually a period of time where they're becoming sexually active, sexually aware, and they're developing an identity. Young people's time period is prolonged and fluid, as it often begins with earlier sexual engagement as of lately and a longer formal education, which is expanding the period of time to be considered a young person. These people come from diverse groups with different genders, classes, ages, ethnicities, and more, and they're experiencing a lot of changes, such as more independence, they're going through puberty, they're developing personal identities and values, and they're becoming a lot more exposed to peer pressure. A lot of young people are engaging in risky behavior, which is defined as actions that increase risk of STIs or pregnancies. Right now, about 46% of high schoolers are having intercourse. About 34% of them became active in the last 3 months, and 41% of these students don't use condoms or contraception at all. Of these students, 41.8% did not get tested, feeling they're not at risk. 54.7% were interested in testing, but did not get it because they feared their parents would find out. And another percentage was fearful of the embarrassment or stigma that they might experience by professionals and chose not to get tested because of it. STIs themselves are diseases that are spread by vaginal, anal, oral, or other sexual contact. Some examples include HPV, HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea, or herpes. They often have no signs or symptoms, and if left untreated, they can result in infertility or chronic lifetime illness. About 20 million people in the U.S. contract STIs annually, and about 10 million of those are individuals ages 15 to 24. Right now, young people make up about 28% of chlamydia cases and about 22% of gonorrhea cases, according to the U.S. Department of Health. Sex education right now is certainly lacking. According to Hall et al. In 2016, all states require sex education, but only 37% require heavily stress abstinence-only education. 13 states require medically accurate information to be taught, and 8 states require that the information be applicable to different sexual orientations. That leaves a lot of gaps in a lot of states. Some of the biggest gaps include the use of a condom. It's not taught as often as it should be, and usually sex education is being taught after students have already engaged in sex. Right now, about 6 hours are being spent per curriculum on pregnancy prevention, contraceptives, condoms, and STIs, which is not a whole lot. Also, 87% of schools allow parents to exclude their children from classes if they don't want them learning this information. Sex education would definitely be improved by use of the circles of sexuality as well as many other models. Some of the most important circles for this instance being intimacy, where individuals are able to be emotionally close, open, and vulnerable with another person. It's important to talk about intimacy in these classes because students need to learn how to communicate in order to assert safer sex practices if they choose to do so. Sensuality is also very important, as body image can play a big role, as well as self-esteem. It impacts how individuals decide to have sex, and Bywater and Jones talk about how young women are they view their worth based on their attractiveness, which can actually make them more susceptible to have sex before they're ready. Social justice is really important in sex education in that, social workers can choose to talk about it in schools or with their, with their clients, but to ignore that this is going on with different states having all these different regulations and allowing for so many gaps in the country is just unacceptable. Social workers really need to advocate for better sex education universally. Trauma-informed care also needs to be used in sex education, where the understanding is that many different people have trauma in their lifetime, and trauma-informed care needs to be used at different levels of service. Choice, safety, and empowerment are extremely important. Choice in whether or not a student chooses to get the information should not be left up to the parents, and they shouldn't be forced to subscribe to abstinence if they don't agree with it. Safety is important in including all genders, sexualities, and identities in sex education where they aren't right now. And empowerment is important to teaching students, to take their sexual health into their own hands and give them access to different condoms, STI testing information, and tools that they need. Overall, it's really important to include all of these models in safe and effective sex education. And social workers really need to advocate for this at many different levels in order to reduce risk of our young people. Thank you.